Hello folks, this is Perry again. Today we're going to learn what happens when you try to weld 6010 with an inverter welder. What we have here is a 2015 Lincoln PowerMig 210 MP. It is not rated for 6010. This right here is a 2003 Miller Dynasty 300DX, and it is rated to weld 6010. Now, both of these machines are inverter welders, but this one right here costs $1,000, and that's a $6,000 welder. So let's see what the difference is. So the rods we're going to be using today are Forney. These were bought at the hardware store and stored in a plastic container away from moisture. The red rods are 6010. This is 6011. And this is 6013. Now for the setup, we have a couple of coupons here. These are 10 gauge, nothing real special. And I have wire wheeled them off a little bit, but there's still some, rust and mill scale and all that. But, that's supposed to be the wheelhouse of small welding. So we're set up grounded here. Here's our stick electrode. And we're DC electrode positive. So let's get going. We are hot. Okay, I don't profess to be the world's best stick welder or even a good stick welder, so this might be a little challenging. Well, I blew through. That was challenging to get started, but it's ugly. Let's take a look at that. So this is what it looks like. It's not terrible. It could be better. Let's try the 6011 rod and see what happens. Okay, now we're trying 6011. Weird. I get about 3/4 of an inch and the arc goes out. Okay, I just reduced the arc force down to 5. It was 7. if it has something to do with the hot start, because the hot start's at 7. And I was at 85 amps. Let's try... Just for giggles, I jacked the arc force up to 10 to see if that has any behavior change. Yeah, it's really hard to strike an arc. Okay, so we're at arc force of 1, which is supposed to be a smoother puddle. Yeah, that worked a lot better. Let's try. I went back up to arc force of 5 and hot start of 5. And that's just blowing through. It's definitely finicky. Let's see what 6010 does again. Because the 6011 was a lot easier to start, but it kept blowing out. A bit too hot. Let's crank the amperage down a little bit. And it went from 85 to 75 amps. Well, that worked a lot better. That actually worked really well. Let's try that with the 6011. We'll just flip the coupon over. Got to maintain a real short arc with the 6011. You know, I'd say it's 6 in one, half a dozen of the other. I really don't like the performance of either of them, but they're passable. Let's see what 6013 does. You know, 60-13 runs real easy. So 60-13 runs pretty easy. Not much difficulty. I mean, this welder seems to be really difficult to get an arc to strike. It doesn't have a lot of arc jump. So you're short arcing it directly to the welder or to the coupon, trying to get it to strike, and it definitely doesn't quite have that oomph that other welders have. I mean, my engine drive seems to work the best in my opinion. But okay, so now I'm going to set up the miller, and we'll see how it does, and if there's any difference whatsoever in how it behaves. Okay, so we're back with the miller welder, and you'll notice there's no fan noise in the background because the fan doesn't turn on until it gets too warm. So we're going to continue using that piece of 60-13 that we started out with the Lincoln welder, and we've got a new coupon here. This is some 3/16" thick cold rolled that was used for Boy Scouts to learn how to weld on. So we're going to run that. Okay. So 80 amp. Okay, once I got it started, that seemed to lay out pretty well. Oh man, I don't know if you can see what I see, but that's looking a lot nicer off the top of my head. We're going to have to run the Lincoln on this piece too, and see what happens. So we ran some 60-13 there. Now we're going to run 60-10, not changing anything about the setup. Just stack beads. Now that's some funny stuff. That seemed to work pretty good. So the puddle was a bit wider, it spattered a bit more. Definitely had a bit more penetration than the 60-13, and my puddle was getting a bit wide there. Let's try the 60-11. But other than getting the arc started, which seems to be a little bit of a challenge, maybe. So dig is at 40%. It was 38%. I have the manual inside. I can go and look at how to tweak some of the other settings. Okay, so first off, it struck an arc and I didn't even try. That was like almost an accident. That was about as easy as it got for striking an arc. the slag. So the slag on the 6010, it's got that sort of volcano crust. The 6013 is a lot like a 70 series. It just, you know, it almost flakes off on its own. The 6011, it's more volcano crust, but it's sticking a lot harder. So here are shots of the Miller side. As you can see, the 6011 is on top. This is 6013 right here, and then that's 6010. We flip it over, we look at the Lincoln side. This right here is 6010. The really pretty one right there is 6011. And then this is, or excuse me, is 6013, and then that's 6011 right there. So that's what you get. So what did we prove today? Well, we proved that even when it's not rated for 6010, an inverter welder will still run 6010. It's just harder to start, and the weld bead isn't as good as 6011. It doesn't wet out as well as 6011. But we also saw that there were challenges with 6011. It was not quite as hard to start as 6010. It was difficult to stay lit. I had to fiddle with the settings on this, and it's still not 100% right. You know, you look at 6013, 6013 makes everybody look like a hero. Now, we look at a more expensive welder that is rated to run 6010, and what we got was basically the same performance on all three rods. The bead quality was different, but it wetted out the same. Starting was pretty much the same, and you know, bead quality was pretty much what you would expect for each of the different rods. Now, if I had to take a wager, a guess on what really was the crucial difference, it had to do with the voltage. Now, this welder right here is basically a 25 volt welder. Now, that welder right there, that's a 230 volt in welder, but the rated voltage on it is a little bit higher. I think it's somewhere around 38 volts. So what we're seeing is that that welder right there, for the same current, is able to run a little higher voltage and have a longer arc. Whereas this one right here, whenever you tried to stretch the arc out at all, even just a little bit, it would blow out. Now, there might be some settings you can play around with on this, and I'm sure if it was your only welder, you would really, you know, futz around on it a lot and try to make it do what you want. But the way I classify it, this seems to work best as a MIG welder. I haven't run it as a TIG welder, but you know, you can see other videos on that on YouTube. For my money, if I'm going to do any stick welding, to be honest, I just break out the welder generator, because without fail, that thing seems to just throw down a great bead. It's easy to start. It's a real smooth arc, and you know, that's another thing to really point out is that welder generator. It's a three-phase welder, so you've got a real nice, smooth, rectified. You know, it's rectified three-phase, but you don't have these weird spikes that you get with a single-phase welder that runs off of mains. That's a transformer welder. That's DC, like say a Thunderbolt. Both of these being inverter welders, they effectively work like a three-phase welder because they rectify the incoming voltage into DC, and they have big capacitors in there. That one has bigger capacitors than this one, so that one has the ability to, you know, hold up. It has a stiffer power supply, and it's able to maintain its voltage for a longer period of time and recover quicker. This one right here is a little bit more of a budget, but you know, that welder right there costs 6 times what this welder costs. And when you look at today's price for that welder, that's an $8,000 welder. So it's 8 times the cost of this welder. Is it 8 times the welder? I don't know. It depends on the application. That's a really, really nice welder. It, you know, it's the proverbial Cadillac of welders. And Excepting the Aerowave, which is basically 2 of those in a single box, there wasn't really any better welder when that was made. So this, I feel, is a great value. It works great for MIG. You know, overall, I think this is a great little welder, and if it's your only welder, I think it'll do great for you. And you know, you can get by on stick welding. Now, 70 series is a whole nother ball of wax I'm not going to cover today, but suffice it to say, it probably does really well on 70 series. So, well, thanks for watching, tuning in, and rate, like, subscribe, whatnot, and appreciate it. Thanks. Bye.